puberty is an initiation. And for those of you that have taken initiations of the Sacred Feminine class, you'll remember that we talked about the way in which watershed moments of our lives, such as our birth, puberty, the sexual encounter with the other, the decision to have a child or not to have a child, menopause, and death, are all sort of the supreme initiatory moments in a human's life. And if you study other cultures, one of the things that you study are all of the ceremonies and rituals that those cultures have around these moments. And in fact, I would be so bold as to say that the primary function of culture, or the primary structures of most cultures, are the structures that are placed around these initiatory moments. And one of the issues that we have in the current environment is that those structures have largely either broken down, the containers that hold the initiatory moments have either broken down or become compromised in some way. And so if we're looking at the initiation of puberty, for instance, most cultures take the opportunity of the change from child to adult, from a being that cannot procreate to a being who can procreate, as a very important moment. And the reason that they work very hard to have these initiatory rites is so that they can actually capture the power that is released in the moment of change. One of the characteristics of initiation is that they are moments of change where the being goes from one form to another form. And as the old structures are breaking down, there is a power that is released that is ideally dedicated to the initiate, for the initiate to be able to create powerful structures in the new form. This does not happen.
Can you say that last one?
Ideally, what the initiatory moment provides is an opportunity for the initiate to receive the power that is released as the old forms break down and the new forms come into being. However, most cultures set up ceremonies and rituals around these initiatory moments in order to take the power that is released at these initiatory moments and dedicate it to the structures of the society. And these ceremonies and rituals are designed to take the individual's power and dedicate it to the power of the culture and to the sustenance and maintenance of the society. Now, this doesn't have to be a negative thing. You can have a society that is providing sustenance and care and support to all of its members, and these initiatory moments are moments that bring the culture together, that where the culture receives with respect the power that the initiate is releasing as they're moving from one form to another, and the cultural forms and the authorities within the cultural forms can be very appreciative of that power and receive the initiate with respect. And this does happen in many cultural settings. However, in the current time, as I said, in this American culture, there's very few containers or rituals or ceremonies to help the child as they are going through this momentous change into puberty. And in the absence of those kinds of containers, the child gets very disoriented and seeks outside of any kind of given forms, because there are no given forms, to try to create some kind of a structure to manage the movement away from the experience of childhood in the bosom of the family into the larger social context where the new adult now takes its place. So one thing that I would say when you're working with teenagers is that you have to recognize that these are initiates. And whether or not the culture is providing the right kinds of cultural structures and containers to support the child as it moves into teenager, the initiatory moment is upon the child. And one of the things that I have seen happen again and again is that there is some interesting phenomenon around the karma ripening at the time of puberty. And you often see this in, strike after strike of some kind of huge event that the child goes through. Often, so many people go through some kind of family divorce at this age. It's very common. Or they will have some other major event that will happen to them. It can be a positive or a negative thing. But it's really a moment where the person comes into awareness of themselves in a new context, generally as a result of some big shift. A big event will often happen at the time of puberty. So, given that seems to be something that's happening again and again, having a lack of structure or container becomes a real issue. And of course, one of the things that's happening with the initiation of puberty is that the child is becoming an adult. And this is a moment of separation away from the parent and into the larger context. And in many cultures, you have there's even such a strong container, for instance, as that the child has a different name for their mother or father before they've gone into puberty, and they have a different name for their mother and father after they go through puberty, to mark this change. And one of the things that happens is parents can't, in the modern environment, they can't deal with it. What's going on? My kid just turned into a monster, oh God, I can't stand teenagers. I can't believe I have to live with this, what is this brat that I thought that was this sweet little cuddly thing that's now this big prickly thing, it's like everybody's like reeling because they don't understand what's happening. They don't understand this momentous experience that the child is going through, and they don't understand that it's possible to take the initiatory moment and the power that's released in it and dedicate it back to the child, now adult, in a way that empowers the new adult. And rather what happens is people get into power struggles, and the parents want to reassert their authority, and the child wants to find a way to get away from that authority. And what can happen is the child simply rejects all power that might be helpful, all structure that might be helpful, and they wind up in these situations where there's very little supervision and a lot of experimentation with things that are not so helpful, as they are seeking sources of power to differentiate themselves from their parents' ways of maintaining and generating power. So that's the context in which a teenager comes into your office.